I've always loved hiking. The isolation, the quiet, the sense of being alone in nature. It calms me. There's something peaceful about it. Just walking for hours with nothing but the sound of your own footsteps and the occasional rustle of leaves. I'd been doing it for years, ever since I was a teenager, but this hike was different. I should have known it was a bad idea to go out there alone, but I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just a quick weekend hike through the woods near my cabin. No big deal, right? I'd been to these woods dozens of times before. I knew the trails like the back of my hand. The trees were thick but not too dense. The path was clear. Even so, I couldn't shake the strange feeling that had settled in my chest as soon as I set out. It was the kind of feeling that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, the kind you can't quite explain but know is there, like an itch you can't scratch. As I walked deeper into the woods, the trees started to grow taller, their trunks thicker, blocking out the sunlight. The further I went, the darker it became. I checked my watch, 2 p.m., but in those woods it was already twilight. There was a strange, oppressive quiet in the air, the kind that presses on your eardrums, making the sound of your own breath seem unbearably loud. The birds had stopped singing. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, my footsteps growing louder against the now damp earth. I had been walking for almost 2 hours, and the path was beginning to twist in ways that didn't quite make sense. Then I saw it. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. Maybe it was just my eyes adjusting, the shadows playing games on the trees. But no, I saw it again. A light deep within the woods. It wasn't like a flash from a flashlight or a glow from a distant campfire. It was a soft, pulsing glow, like a lantern hanging from the air itself, suspended in the thick dark of the trees. It was faint, almost too faint to see, but it was unmistakable. At first, I thought it was a person, someone else hiking the trails. But as I stood still, straining my eyes to focus on the source of the light, something didn't feel right. The light was moving. It wasn't bobbing like someone walking with a lantern. It was swaying like a thing, like it was alive. My heart began to race. I shouldn't have followed it. I knew that now. But something inside me made me take a step forward. I told myself I just wanted to see what it was. It was probably nothing, just some weird natural phenomenon. I kept my eyes fixed on it as I moved forward, the glow faint but unmistakable. As I pushed through the underbrush, I realized something worse. The woods had grown silent again. No wind, no rustling leaves, just me and the glow ahead. The closer I got, the more unsettling it became. It wasn't like any light I had ever seen. It wasn't like a lantern or a flashlight beam. It was more ethereal, almost as if it were floating, suspended in midair. And as I drew closer, something in the pit of my stomach told me that I wasn't supposed to be here. When I finally reached the source, I found nothing. The light, that eerie floating glow, had vanished. And in its place was darkness, a dense, suffocating shadow that seemed to stretch out across the trees, closing in on me. The air grew heavy, as though the woods themselves were holding their breath. I started to turn back, but then I heard it. A voice, software, almost a whisper, but clear enough for me to hear.
Stay.
I froze. My blood ran cold. The voice wasn't coming from anywhere near me. It came from everywhere. It came from the trees, the very ground beneath my feet. It was in the air, in my bones.
Stay with me.
A cold, creeping terror washed over me as I realized something horrible. I wasn't alone. The woods, the trees, the air, it was all alive. It had always been alive, and now it was awake. I began walking faster, my legs moving on their own. I had to get out, but no matter which direction I turned, the forest seemed to close in around me. The trees were no longer friendly. The air was thick, oppressive, as if it was actively trying to keep me there. The light didn't return, but I could feel something unseen, pushing me further into the woods. I started running, my breath ragged, my feet stumbling over roots and branches. But the deeper I went, the more disorienting it became. The trees were unfamiliar now. I couldn't remember which way I had come from. I was lost. Then I saw it again, the light. This time, it wasn't pulsing softly. It was staring at me. The glow seemed to fix on me, and I felt a cold rush of air sweep past me, like something huge, invisible, was moving through the trees. And then I heard it again, that whisper.
"You're never leaving."
I didn't hesitate this time. I didn't think. I just ran. I don't remember how long I ran. All I know is that when I finally broke free from the trees, I was in a completely different place. A meadow, a wide clearing that stretched out under the moonlight. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, my body shaking violently. But when I looked up, I saw something in the distance. The trees were still there, the woods looming behind me. But at the edge of the woods, standing in the dark, there was a figure, a man, but not a man. His body was twisted, contorted, his face obscured by shadow, but his eyes glowed the same soft, eerie light, and he was staring directly at me.
"You were always meant to stay."
I ran back to my cabin, terrified. I never went back into the woods. The next day, I packed my things and left Marlowe Street. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still following me. That thing, whatever it was still in those woods. And even now, as I sit here, I can still feel the cold presence of that figure watching me, waiting. Every time I close my eyes, I can see the glow that calls me back. The woods are waiting for me to return. And one day, I know I will.